Okay, I think it's about time we can get started. So again, welcome everyone to our virtual masterclass today, where our topic will be on maximizing cloud value with a proper IT strategy. So just so everyone knows, my name is Camille. I'm from the Ortus Club, and I will be your master of ceremonies today. I'm also joined by my teammates and Andy, who I'm sure you've all been in contact with, and we're very grateful for your taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us today. So with that, everyone, before we begin, I'd just like to quickly introduce ourselves for those that aren't familiar with us. We are the Ortus Club, and we run knowledge sharing discussions and corporate masterclasses globally. So this is a gathering where senior executives such as yourselves can come together to learn and talk about industry-specific topics. With that, our session today will last us approximately 1 hour and 30 minutes. On that note, I would like to bring everyone to our agenda today. So after this quick introduction, we will be jumping straight into a welcome address and the presentation as well from one of our hosts, Cloud Kinetics, which will then be followed by a presentation from AWS, and we will be ending with a presentation from Lightstorm on migration. And then we will be having some time to have an activity where you will get a chance to win some prizes. And we'll also give you a few minutes to have a Q&A session with the presenters if you might have any additional questions. And then we'll be having some closing remarks at 3:25, and we will be ending the session at 3:30 with a lucky draw. That's right. So if you stick around to the very end of today's discussion, you will be getting a chance to win some AirPods. So we hope to see you at the very end. So you will get a chance to win so you will get a chance to win some AirPods. Now, before we begin, I would like to quickly acknowledge our hosts today, without whom this event would not be possible. Everyone, we have Cloud Kinetics and AWS. We are very grateful for the trust and the opportunity that they've given us to gather you all here together today. And yeah, we're looking forward to hearing all your thoughts today. So I also have the pleasure now of introducing our panelists who will be speaking and sharing with us today. Everyone, we have Rekoram Varadaraj, or RV, the Chief Strategy Officer from Cloud Kinetics. RV.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. We also have Yash Acharya, the Senior Specialist Solutions Architect of Migrations and Modernization from AWS. Yash.
Hello, everyone.
And we have Lalit S. Chowdhury, CTIO from Lightstorm. Lalit.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you. All right, so I guess it's time we get this masterclass started. RV, the floor is yours.
All right, thanks, Camille. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to have you guys on board. We appreciate you taking the time to join us today. We have a fair number of attendees from across the region, primarily centered around Singapore, but significant numbers signing in from India and Indonesia. Again, thank you for taking the time to, in the middle of a busy Wednesday, to spend some time. The topic that we're going to be covering is something which is obviously very relevant and is quite buzzy. It has all the right buzzwords. It's about maximizing cloud value with a proper IT strategy. But the essence of what we're going to be really talking about is, as we think about cloud adoption, which is front and center of most of our minds, what are some of the things to keep an eye out for, and what are some simple steps that we can take, and some risks that we can be cognizant of in order to maximize our journey to the returns that we get from our journey to the cloud. So again, the intent is to keep this as primarily a session where we can talk a little bit about strategy at a high level and what are the clear industry dynamics that we're seeing and what are the learnings that can be derived from it. And with Yash essentially following up and talking a little bit more about migration and modernization and a customer case study also, which gives you a good flavor of what a successful cloud journey could look like, right? So I'm assuming that everybody can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. All right, perfect. So without any further ado, let me launch a little bit into what we had planned. So let me just minimize this. So cloud is clearly a buzzword today, and justifiably so, right? Some of the most conservative estimates that we have for cloud adoption We're talking about rates of growth which are actually stratospheric, right? When you talk about 31% growth year over year over sustained periods of time, just to give you perspective, 15% growth rate every year, a CAGR of 15% means effectively a doubling of the market. At a 31% growth rate, you can imagine how fast public cloud spend has been growing, right? And rightfully so. Judging by the number of people who are in this call, there is justifiable interest in what cloud can do, particularly when it comes to accelerating business transformation. As fast as cloud has been growing, what is interesting is that it remains only around 16%. Now this is a ballpark number, but it gives a quick and kind of directional indication on the fact that hybrid environments still dominate, right? So while people have transitioned to cloud, here what you see as 16.5% cloud adoption is actually a measure of IT spend which has now transitioned to cloud, right? So as fast as cloud has been growing, there is a lot of headroom for cloud to grow even further in terms of IT spend and IT investment, right? So there's a lot of headroom, and it is not a wonder that when you do a survey across pretty much most C-suite and leadership levels across mid-market and enterprise clients, cloud is very often ranked as among the top 3 IT priorities for organizations across pretty much every industry sector, right? As you can see in the chart at the bottom half, digital transformation, which is again proxy for cloud, and cloud first and cloud migration, right, is definitely something which every organization has among their top 3 IT priorities. It's also interesting to note that many of the other priorities are in fact driven, in turn by adoption of cloud, right? Like for example, improving customer experience or improving or automation, for example, which is what Lalit will be talking about later today. All of those are actually being driven by cloud. So one could argue that cloud remains, if not among the top 3 IT priorities, is probably it's probably the top IT priority, cutting across pretty much and underpins most of the IT priorities, right? So that arguably is something well known, right? The numbers, while they speak for themselves, this is something that you probably knew before, and that's why you're here, right? But as people think about, and as organizations think about migrating to cloud, people focus a lot about the actual migration and modernization itself. And part of what Yash is going to be covering later today is how it's not just a one-step process, right? And that's literally what we wanted to reiterate too, right? So one of the key things that we wanted to kind of highlight, given our bird's eye view and industry experience and what we are seeing, is that while planning for cloud adoption, right, you also need to know about the top inhibitors or pitfalls that could potentially slow down cloud adoption and operationalize, for example, any multi-cloud strategies that you might have in place or intent that you have in place, right? And the top inhibitors are the ones that you see listed below, right? So cost concerns, security concerns, skill shortage, and hybrid cloud complexity are things that you need to keep an eye out for in order to drive maximum outcomes when it comes to cloud adoption. In particular, I wanted to draw attention to the fact that skills shortage is a top concern across nearly every industry and across company sizes, be they small enterprises, medium enterprises, or very large companies, and obviously government organizations as well. And this is prevalent across every aspect of the cloud component, if you think about it, right? If you think about provisioning, networking, application deployment, or security components, skill shortage is something which is repeatedly flagged as one of the top concerns when it comes to driving IT cloud adoption. So it's very important that when you plan on chart out your IT cloud adoption journey, to be aware of these pitfalls and have a plan to tackle these. The other important facet that clearly emerges, which also is also a corollary of what we saw in the previous slide, is that for the near future, hybrid cloud is here to stay, right? It's very likely that due to business or regulatory concerns, or due to the simple dynamics of how the migration to cloud happens, applications are going to be and a lot of workloads are going to be distributed across both on-prem as well as cloud environments, right? If you think about multi-cloud environments, there's one more tier of complexity, but the cloud complexity around managing hybrid environments is something which is real and has to be factored in whenever it comes to any cloud journeys. It's not when not done the right way. Unfortunately, there is almost a pullback and almost a need for a quote unquote reverse migration. But to avoid things like that, it's best to basically understand that managing hybrid cloud is something that you need to plan for and factor in when you think about cloud adoption, right? The second big thing, which is a very simple thing in retrospect, but something we reiterate often, is that cloud transformation done right is never a day one journey, right? When you talk about migration and modernization, I think that's that's a day one, right? But the journey starts there. It's a process. It's not an event, right? And for us, day two and what we do on day two and day three, arguably and onwards, determine the outcomes of your cloud migration much more so than what you do on day one, right? As the simple infographic kind of illustrates, it's a continuum, right? Where you migrate and modernize, and obviously there is a whole idea around staging and production, etc. But as you migrate your applications and increasingly to the cloud, it's important to continue to operate and fine tune them, right? And get to ensure that your cloud footprint and your hybrid cloud footprint is completely performing to the levels of excellence and in a secure manner and in a manner that is cost efficient, right? And ensures that it meets your uptime and reliability concerns before you continue to modernize, right? So we view this as more as a continuum and not as a lift and shift. So very often the term lift and shift indicates that it's once and done. It rarely is. In most cases, outcomes are most determined by what happens, particularly when it comes to day two and afterwards. And that is where I'd like to tie it back to the conversation that we had about the complexity associated with managing hybrid environment and how it's vital that you effectively have skills and teams at your disposal who are able to help fine-tune these dynamics such that the cloud journey drives the kind of outcomes that you desire. How are we on time, Camille? Just wanted a quick time check.
Yeah, we're still good on time. You still have
Okay. All right. So I don't have a clock in front of me, but yeah, but that is one of the reasons I obviously make a case for you to have an expert partner, right, who can aid you in doing cloud transformation, right? So that in effect, you have a partner or a team, a de facto extended team, who's an expert at this, and therefore you can focus your team's resources on ensuring that the key business outcomes that you want to drive and innovations actually continue, right? In that context, I just wanted to ensure that Cloud Kinetics is somebody that you can think of as an expert partner. As we mentioned here, obviously we are premier partners for AWS, but across your hybrid work environment, we have the competency and proven expertise that helps you manage cloud adoption in an increasingly complex environment, right? And the sample clients that we have and the services that we have speak for themselves, but we'd love to talk to you a little bit in that context. But that's pretty much all I had for my presentation by way of an introduction and to set the floor, so to speak. I'll pause there and actually hand over to Yash, who for the next part, where he talks a little bit more about the migration and modernization journey. Over to you, Yash.
Thank you so much, RV. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll just quickly share my screen. All right. Hope it's visible.
Yes, we can all see it.
Awesome. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'll just again give a quick introduction. So I'm Yash Acharya, and I'm a specialist solutions architect for migrations and modernization based in Singapore, helping customers across Southeast Asia with their migrations and modernization journey. So as Avi mentioned today, that quite a few business drivers that customers need to look into while they can even consider moving to the cloud, right? So We've spoken about the migration patterns, but modernization in a cloud context is equally important for any customer to achieve the total value and to achieve their business values once they move to the cloud, right? So just to give everyone understands that migrations are very complex in nature. If you're part of a huge organization, it becomes much more difficult, right? There are security policies or business rules, current operations, and these all things can actually hamper or stall your projects, not just by months but by years as well, if things are not picked out beforehand, right? So based on our learnings while working with different thousands of customers across the globe, we've come up with a 3-phase strategy wherein we focus on the assess, wherein we make all the customers realize what the value would be once you move to AWS, create a directional business case for you, and the issues that we spoke about earlier in terms of your security, if the internal teams have not bought into the cloud migration project, or let's say teams are not skilled enough. As Ari mentioned, there's a huge skill gap in terms of how people operate on the cloud, right? So for that, we conduct AWS and partners, we conduct a MRA, which is the Migration Readiness Assessment. That's just to figure out what potentially could be blockers while the migration is going on, right? So that really helps the customer from a leadership standpoint as well, what all blockers they would need to remove, and then proceed towards the migration. The second phase is what we call the mobilized phase, wherein we go into the specifics of laying down the foundation, right? So partners along with AWS, we would go and work with the customer to build a strong foundation. Until and unless you don't have a strong, like you would need to step back and see, oh, I can't really move this. So having a strong foundation is very important. So you'll need to map, let's say it's very important that you make sure that you have proper testing mechanisms even while you're deploying your infrastructure. So all this needs to be built out during the mobilized phase once you go into the depth of the overall migration, right? And the third phase is the migrate and modernize phase. So Arvi spoke about the migration part. I'll touch base on the modernization part, on how you can accelerate the modernization journey onto AWS once you start leveraging the cloud, right? So based on last few years of working with different sort of customers, worldwide, what we've seen is we've created an accelerator based on the experience, kept the name very simple. Based on the experiences that we've had with different customers, we've created a very agile cross-functional team methodology, wherein all teams come together, collaborate, and form a working methodology. So that would help in accelerating your journey onto AWS, right? So just for an example, like if there were customers like Tableau or even Amdocs who created a EBA, as in leverage the EBA to shorten out their migration pathway from 6 months to 3 months. So they were able to immerse themselves, they were able to work in a cross-functional manner, and were able to shorten down the overall migration plan just because they were working in cross-functional teams. They were able to remove the silos that were in place, right? And also overcome any cross-functional team challenges that they were facing while they were working in a traditional manner. So this is a methodology that customers have adopted, and they've been successful in transitioning to the cloud, not just from a migration perspective, but even, let's say, from creation of their CCOEs, the Cloud Center of Excellence teams, plus even their modernization pathway. Yeah. So just to give everyone a bit of a context, so we've seen these usually, every word would be very familiar to you in terms of how the migrations happen. But what we've seen across ASEAN, or more in the APJ region, is that right now the rehost plus replatform forms the biggest part of the overall migration journey for any customer. Refactor and repurchase are still small percentage of the entire landscape. But in the future, once customers have migrated, this overall score would change, because they would also like to modernize themselves. They would also like to modernize the applications, the databases that they're using, so that they can achieve scale and also end up with good business outcomes, right? So to give everyone a perspective on what the future looks like, there was a recent study done by Forrester, wherein they mentioned that 90% of the apps would be cloud native by 2025. This is a very interesting fact. Why? Because what you would be seeing in the near future is that even now, to be honest, enterprises are looking at being technology first companies, right? They want to focus on technology. They want to achieve scale. They want to onboard millions of users. So to achieve that scale and the agility, they want to build applications leveraging the cloud native services. So that this is an indicative figure which Forrester has provided in terms of how the applications would be built out in by 2025. Similar, following the technology first pattern, if you're looking at replacing apps, or even creating new spectrums within the organization, from a this study was basically done again by independent company Gartner, wherein they mentioned that 500 million applications would be new applications would be built out by 2025. So it's a very interesting fact, and where they've worked with customers and seen that they, while launching new products in the market, they are looking at a cloud first strategy, and they want to build more cloud native apps to achieve that scale and agility that they would not be able to achieve while they sit on prem. So what we need to realize is that migrating and modernizing both are equally important. Not just migrating would not make you realize the entire value of the cloud. Until and unless you don't modernize, it would just be another data center for you, right? So you should actually look into slowly and steadily modernize and make sure that all your requirements, internal as well as external requirements, are fulfilled, leveraging the scale and the agility that you achieve, right? So the first step would be to moving to managed services on the cloud. There are different services available, like for managed databases you have services, then even for caching layers you have services. You can start leveraging those to achieve those scales and remove that overhead that you would get while the applications are running on premise, right? And then you move to more cloud native architectures, leveraging event driven architectures, or even microservices, right? So this would help you in realizing the full potential of your cloud journey. So I spoke briefly about how the business outcomes, how does modernization relate to your business outcomes, right? So anyway, even though you migrate onto AWS. Just carry out a migration that would also help you in achieving a huge saving based on the different pillars of like your staff agility, operational excellence. So and also the platform costs, right? On-prem versus AWS, you would see some sort of savings when you move to the cloud. But once you start modernizing, these numbers that you see on the screen are basically on top of what you achieve while you migrate to the cloud. So modernizing should always be the next step, or let's say the step that you think about in parallel while you evaluate your migration journey to AWS. So this slide is just giving you a more focused aspect on which services you can leverage, right? So since first step, as in most of our customers, when we work with them, they go for a lift and shift approach, right? So they there you would just be leveraging on the native services like EC2 and VPC. But moving forward, once they start understanding cloud, once they start seeing the benefits of cloud, they would move into cloud managed, wherein you would look at RDS or ECS. These are basically managed databases or managed container platforms, or cloud native services, wherein they go into serverless event driven architectures. And finally move into the innovation phase, wherein you launch new products completely built on cloud native architectures, right? So you don't need to refactor your code. You're building it from the scratch, so it becomes really easy to maintain it and to evolve it as you go ahead. So this again just again emphasizes that as technical leaders and being part of the entire team in terms of the organization landscape, what we've seen is that as IT heads, usually we should be going in and telling our business teams that, see, right now it's only 14% of the IT spend which is getting allocated for modernization. But if we bump it, if we bump it by a small margin, or let's say double up the overall budgets, you would get more business value out of the overall applications that you build on the cloud, right? Either you leverage on the same teams, but the outcomes would be slower, or you expand the teams just so that the teams can handle it, the cloud native architectures in a quick and a easy manner. So, what the major business differentiators are in terms of modernizing is basically to first lift and shift. Make sure that you lift and shift so that all the all the heavy lifting is reduced. And second is invest more into making your architectures more cloud native and actually realizing the business value of cloud, right? So now going slightly deeper into the modernization play, what we've understood, or what while we've worked with customers, these are the four main areas that we've seen which have worked really well with our customers across the globe, right? So in terms of the pathways, we've seen the container adoption to be really high. And just this morning we were having I'll be open with everyone. Just this morning we were having a conversation with the worldwide team, and we got to know that the container adoption is at the top in terms of the overall modernization pathway adoption, right? So first, this helps in basically making it easier for you in terms of handling your code, your configurations, and your dependencies. So that should be the first step to go forward. Then serverless, again, for event-driven architectures where you don't really want to maintain any infrastructure, that's the way to go. Managed data and analytics go hand in hand, making sure that all your data is handled in a safe and a secure manner, and is also available for analytics so that you can improve the overall customer experience by making personalized recommendations or any other aspects in terms of making the customer journey successful. So just to give some aspects right now, in terms of how things are working on AWS, if these are all market research numbers that we've done, and 80% of all the container workloads are currently running on AWS. 62% of the enterprises who've adopted serverless architectures in terms of the event-driven mechanisms are on AWS. Similarly, for managed data, what we've seen is the cost factor is very important, since if you're a big organization, you would have huge amounts of data, right? So the storage options, the overall mechanisms that are available on AWS makes it very easy for our customers to host it on AWS. And similarly, for managed analytics, we have more than 200,000 data lakes running on AWS, which gives which basically shows you how much you can scale on the platform without facing any issues while you run your applications onto AWS. I would just like to jump into one service that we recently launched, and this is actually very helpful. And we've worked with customers is specifically in ASEAN as well, wherein this service helps you in modernizing your workloads quickly, right? So this what migration hub refactor spaces does is studies your code, studies the environment, the dependencies, and comes up with a modernization plan for you. So there are recommendations that would come out of this overall of this service, right? And would help you in carrying out refactoring of these applications that you're scanning as well. So it would work in a silo mode, so you don't need to worry that the customer traffic would be routed directly to the application consumers, right? You would have a silo mode or a mock environment created for yourself, wherein you can test all the changes easily and effectively. And once you are satisfied with the changes that have been recommended in terms of achieving scalability and agility for your for the application, you can easily reroute the traffic from the old to the new application module, which are basically being hosted in different AWS accounts. So that's it from my side, and next I'll hand it over to Lalit. He would be talking about about Lightstorm's journey on how they've carried out their migration and transformation, and give you a perspective on that. So over to you, Lalit.
Thank you, Yash. Thank you. Before I share my screen, I would like to say that how relevant your conversation has been, especially for us in Lightstorm, and I would specifically point out the modernization pathways and how it ties up with our story as well. Okay, so let me just share my screen here. If we can all see, if we are ready to go, give me a thumbs up, and I'll start.
It's still loading, but I'll let you know when it's up.
Yep, I can see.
Okay,
all right.
There you go.
All right, wonderful. So this is a case study that I want to, in next 15 minutes, bring to you on what Lightstorm has done. Before that, I just want to talk briefly about what Lightstorm is. We are a company which was born in pandemic. Like most of the people who are startups, they say, well, we are born in the cloud. Of course, we are born in the cloud, but we also had this unfortunate situation where the whole world was struggling with pandemic, and we got our license right in the middle of that, and we were able to build this network. If you, the map on the map of India, the lines that you see in orange is our network, which is currently operational. We have connected 5 cities. All the 5 major metros we have connected onto our network, and we have connected 45 data centers. Multi-tenancy data centers are already on our network, and our plan is to build this network extended all the way to Kolkata and some of the other neighboring countries, so that we can connect more than 45 data centers. And as Yash and Avi talked about, the trends are very, very clear. People are moving their workloads into the cloud. Whether they are moving it to a public cloud or a private cloud, that's the hybrid model that Yash talked about, and there is a lot of headroom. As Arvi had said, only 15% of the people are on the public clouds. So we are the ones who are actually connecting all the data centers, be it any kind of workload which is lying there. We have a network to connect the services. Okay, so this is what we do. We have been able to build in a very short span of time. 15,000 kilometers of fiber laid and connected. Another 15,000 work in progress. We will very soon have that in this year. We actually started with the customer problem. The customer problem statement was that they are looking for open networks, they are looking for transparency, and they want, and for our own operations, we wanted smarts. So the openness actually comes from the RESTful open APIs. So we have systems within within our network. They should be able to talk to each other on open APIs, and if necessary, we can expose these APIs for our customers to consume. The transparency is something that we believe we bring by providing single pane of glass to our customers, and people who are familiar with using AWS, they know how a single pane of glass gives you a view of what's happening onto your AWS consumption. We want to follow a very similar kind of approach and be able to provide what's happening on our network, so that our customers don't have to call. They can see it on their glass plane. Now, finally, which is a work in progress, how do we make all these applications that we have taken work together and bring in the intelligence out of it? So that's the modernization approach, which is still work in progress. So moving on, the what part of it, like what is it that we are doing, and what is it that we are doing that nobody else is doing? Like zero touch provisioning. Zero touch provisioning is something which is very close to Lightstorm. When a service is demanded by a customer, we want that service to be provisioned without people having to go and touch onto the network. So zero touch provisioning is something that we do. Single pane of glass I talked about. We want to bring in the cognitive nature of the data mining and the intelligence that comes out of it. We want to bring it. That is work in progress. To be able to do proactive fault management is something that we are implementing as part of our automation journey. And to be a digital native company, and in which we have clearly identified what are the things that people don't do and we should be doing, like to provide simple things like latency, or if there is a flap in the network, to be able to provide this in real time to our customers that, hey, this is what is happening in the network, this is what we are seeing, are you seeing the same thing? So those are the digital nativity of our network that we are doing, which nobody else is doing. Moving forward, I would now jump into the use case. Like when we started thinking about how do we build our network operations center. So the things that we said we would do is we would make sure that our processes and the rules engines are all built into the applications that we are purchasing. Now this is something very simple, but still a very few people do it. It's not rocket science. it's called open loop automation. So that is something that we have already put into place. Okay, and what it gives us is significant benefits into the time that it takes to resolve a problem which gets reported, like auto trouble ticketing. Auto trouble ticketing is when a problem happens and the time it takes to raise a ticket to a right person in the field, that this is a specific action that you need to take because a problem has happened, is something that we have already implemented, and we are seeing huge benefits in terms of turnaround times. So we are already in step 2, and the step 3 is what Yash had talked about in the modernization. How do we take all this data lake information? How do we build analytics and intelligence around the information that we have collected so far? Look into deep patterns. Things like, to give you an example, if there is a specific site at which we continuously see temperature going high, then this is a trend that you can easily capture through a data lake. Another example would be that fiber would deteriorate over a period of time, and that can be easily measured, but it cannot be measured on a day-to-day basis. It had to be measured as a trend. So if those are the intelligence that we can build into our automation engine, then we will be able to serve our customers better. We will be able to maintain our network proactively instead of reactively as we do. So to give the specific example, how we have been able to cut down the time of our network operations in terms of finding the fault, where the fault lies and where the ticket has to be fired. So what a normal traditional approach would take 80 minutes to resolve a problem and issue a trouble ticket, we have been able to do it in 45 minutes, which is almost like half the time has been cut there. And overall, 25% of the time is cut, which is a significant amount of improvement, if you will, for the MTTR that we provide to our customers. Moving on, how we have been able to do it. One of the biggest things that when we started was where do we host our application? Nokia gave us the OSS application, which has all the software which gives us the visibility into the network. Our network is from Sienna. Nokia gives us the software which gives us the visibility into the network. We decided that we would host it on AWS, and we were the first ones to do it. We said, look, if we are connecting clouds, then we shouldn't be hesitant of adopting cloud. How would we ever succeed if we are ourselves having this question mark, hey, is cloud safe? Is it secure? All those questions, we put them aside. We said, we will go straight into the cloud. We'll be born in the cloud or a cloud native organization. And we were helped. And so when we went to AWS, we said, who can help us? We don't have the people. And, Arvi talked about the resource crunch. So they introduced us to Cloud Kinetics. So Cloud Kinetics became our partner who implemented this Nokia software hosting into the AWS. I would say that was one of the smartest decisions that we made, because within a month of issuing the purchase order to Nokia, we were up and running in cloud in less than 30 days. So for us, from PO to production, it was the shortest time, and that was the best experience that we got working with some of the great partners who have been helpful in making our journey very successful. And of course, Nokia is continuously upgrading its software and is bringing all the features and functionalities that we have asked for. Some of the other software that we have, which we are now hosting, Asadian is something that we are giving, which gives us the view of the network, whether the network is having flaps or what is the latency in the network. That is now getting implemented. Salesforce is already in AWS. I don't have to mention that. We also have billing system from Oracle. Freshwork is our trouble ticketing system. So we believe we have some great partners, be these application providers, which are SaaS providers, and be it our own software application that we have to make a decision on hosting it on a public cloud, we believe we have a very good story and a great set of partners to support us. So with that, I will hand it over back to Camille. So I hope this was useful. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing that, Lalit. And thank you as well, RV and Yash. So we're actually running very early on time. As I did mention earlier, we will be having an activity where you will get a chance to win some prizes. So I just like to touch on that. So moving forward, what we have in store for you today is a very quick game of Kahoot. So if you aren't familiar with it, all you really have to do is take out your mobile phones and then scan the QR code or go to kahoot.it, and then you will enter the quiz number that we will be displaying later. And then when you do get prompted, all you have to do is input your first name and your company. This is very important so that if you do win, we do know who to send the gift to. So the winners will be the top three, and the way you get points is that you will have 20 seconds to answer each question, and you will be getting points based on answering correctly and quickly. So we do hope that you all listen to the three presentations a bit earlier, as the questions will have come from there. And then, as we mentioned, the top three winners, will be taking home a $50 Grab food voucher. And if you're in India, we will be giving you an Uber Eats voucher, so that you can also make use of that. All right, so I think it's time we get started. Dhritan, would you mind starting the game of Kahoot, please? All right, so as I mentioned, for everyone, all you really have to do is either scan the QR code that you can see or go to kahoot.it and enter the game pin. Let's wait for some of you to join.
I assume the panelists can't participate, so.
Yes, you can participate. All right, there we go. So let's see if we could get about 30 people in. Okay. All right, okay. All right, we're at 20 people. Okay. Okay, are there any more that would like to join? Come on, let's get it up to 30 at least. Two more? Or are we done? Okay, only 28 people want a Grab food voucher. Okay, sure. Let's get started then, Dhritan. All right, so our first question. Good luck, everyone. So our first question, which is the new AWS service launched to accelerate the modernization journey for customers? Okay, you have 20 seconds. So. Okay, let's see. Okay, only one wrong answer. All right, let's see. Let's go to the next page to see who got the highest points. Okay, Mark. All right, Mark is leading. Next, let's go to the next question. What percentage of apps will be cloud native by 2025 as predicted by IDC? Five more seconds. Oh, wow, only 10 people got the right answer. And Aubrey from CK takes the lead. Okay. Let's go next. Which of the following is not an inhibitor for cloud adoption? All right. Okay, that's good. That's good. That's great. Who's leading now? All right, Jitesh takes the lead. Okay, second to the last. What percentage of IT spend has transitioned to the cloud in APAC? Okay, all right. People have been listening very well. That's great. Okay, now Keith is in second place and Aubrey is in third place. And we still have Jitesh in the lead. All right, last question. Choosing an expert cloud partner can help too. For the win, let's see who's taking home those Grab food vouchers or Uber Eats. All right, only one person got the wrong answer. Okay, let's see who the winners are. In third place, we have Vinayak from BMW. All right, second place, we have Keith from Tanglin. And in first place, all right, Jitesh from DBS takes the win. All right, we hope you all enjoyed. Congratulations, and we will be in touch after the masterclass for you to be able to get your prizes. All right, thank you very much, everyone, for participating. Now, moving on, we also have a Q&A portion. So if ever anyone would have some questions, you can feel free to type them in the chat. Otherwise, I do have some questions here that actually some of you already did ask us that we do want to ask to the presenters. So for the panel, any of you could answer. So one of the questions we did receive was, would you migrate using an external managed service provider or do it yourself? Anyone from the panel?
I think Lalit addressed this to some extent, and obviously, I have a less of a biased opinion than others when it comes to this. But in reality, though, I think it really helps to have experts on your side to ensure that you're able to plan the complex exercise associated with migration and also to operate and optimize effectively on the cloud. In most cases, the complexity associated with moving to cloud, people learn about it as they go through the exercise, and it's very worthwhile to actually have a partner who's an expert doing it and helping you to do so in order to navigate the complexities and ensure that Lalit, for example, mentioned that from PO to cloud, literally from PO to MVP took them less than a month. That kind of velocity is usually possible when you have a team which is very skilled at your side, and given the skill shortage that you're facing pretty much, particularly when it comes to cloud talent, it behooves us to basically rely on an expert partner to help aid this migration and modernization so that they can bring their experience and skills to play to do so. Yash, any other thoughts?
Yeah, Ari. So as you rightly mentioned, right? So for customers, typically what we've seen is it's very difficult to have people already on board who understand the complexities of migration. So all the migration competent partners and the premier partners who are basically real good experts in this space can actually form an extended team with the customer and carry out the migration. So it's not just looking at the MSP as just another vendor, but also thinking of them as your extended team who can collaborate with your internal teams to make your cloud journey successful.
Okay, thank you for that input, Yash and RV. We hope whoever asked that question was able to get their answers. If not, again, everyone feel free to put your questions on the chat box if you do have any other further questions. Moving on, we also have another question. How do you monitor and optimize your cloud operation costs on an ongoing basis?
Okay, maybe I'll take that up. So that's a very good question, and it's a valid concern as well in terms of how do you make sure that your costs don't blow up, right? So as an AWS, we've seen our customers struggle on that path. So just to give some context, we have something called a well-architected framework, wherein we specifically have best practices in surrounding cost optimization. So one thing is that internally you should be having cadences or let's say mechanisms in place to make sure that you're monitoring your spend as well as optimizing your environment on a monthly or a quarterly basis, right? So those activities need to be carried out. And in terms of tools and services, there are a variety of tools on AWS which can help you in monitoring the spend. So there are tools like Cost Explorer, AWS Budgets, which you can set up in the environment to make sure that you're monitoring your spends properly, you're setting your forecasted budgets, and that which doesn't shoot up your AWS spend as well. And you get notified in case there is any abnormal bump in the overall spend. Right. So there are frameworks, and obviously you can reach out to partners like Cloud Kinetics or to your AWS account SA to get more context on that front.
Hey Ash, it's Ted here. Just to add to that as well, I think look, I've kind of seen three reasons for cost blowouts. One of which is not necessarily knowing the cost implications of using some of the services, right? So it's just trialing things out, and when something blows up, not knowing what to do is one of the areas. The second one that we've seen a lot is mistakes that we as humans make, right? So if you're not really very familiar with it, you might kind of think, hey, I want to try this Lambda service, etc., do something on it, and if it's not right well thought of, that could potentially kind of blow up the cost as well, depending on what kind of workloads you're using, right? So that's kind of the second one, which is unknowingly making a mistake or a configuration change that you did without realizing the impact. And the third aspect is not necessarily monitoring this, and more importantly, trying to look at how do you kind of forecast this, right? So part of what our best practices is to kind of advise around, look, continuous monitoring is important. We have an ability from Cloud Kinetics to be able to forecast the use of the billing. We use AWS Forecast to look at customers' billing and then be able to forecast and say, well, this is what we are going to see if you continue using this. And this way, if some blowouts are forecasted, you can go in and proactively manage that with re-architect your environment. So these are the things that we look at. And we call it as part of our FinOps practice, to kind of dive deep into customer bills, past usage. Yash, like you said, do a well-architected review to maybe change some of the architectures and kind of go through. So it's a fairly broad view on FinOps that we take to, one, ensure that customers don't get these sticker shocks inadvertently. And number two, how do you actually proactively manage this so that you actually continuously optimize? So that's kind of the ways to kind of look at this as well.
Okay, all right. Thanks as well, Ted, for chiming in on that. We actually have a question from the group. So this is from Vinayak. He said, it's not always necessary to move everything cloud. Agree? What if AWS wants to utilize the existing private DC and convert them to AWS supported extension in future, rather setting up its own AZs in a given region?
Yeah, a tricky question, but I would like to take a jab at it. So basically, yeah, it's not necessary that you move everything to the cloud. It's always based on the application nature as well, that you need to decide where it stays, right? There are different aspects to an application that you need to take care of, and then take a call whether you want to move it to the cloud or keep it on-prem. Now, in terms of what if the second part of your question, in terms of AWS wants to utilize the existing private DC, this typically is not the way we work actually, but in case, let's say, the customer demands it, we have services like Outposts that customers are leveraging to have an extension of their AWS services in their own data center, right? So this is the way that we've seen customers leverage a hybrid model as well, along with whatever they have currently running on AWS.
Okay.
And just to add as well, look, I mean, if I could add.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think there's multiple ways to even look at this from a hybrid perspective. One is obviously, yeah, I mean, not everything is going to move into cloud. Number two, there are going to be a lot of other edge cases. So let's say, for example, you're containerizing your applications and you want to have the choice of wanting to have it on-prem or cloud. So these are kind of like the different aspects that you can look at how to orchestrate that. How do you kind of manage your container workloads? How do you kind of manage your hybrid? Are you a VMware user, and do you want to kind of leverage that aspect on AWS? So all these are very different multitude of options to consider as well when you kind of think through this. When you kind of look at, do you want to keep everything on-prem, move to cloud, or keep it hybrid?
All right. Okay. Does anyone else have anything to add to that? Vinayak seems to have a lot of questions.
If you could go back to the one other original question before potentially going back to Outpost, I think there was one other question that is posed, right? But on private versus public cloud, because it's an adjunct to the same.
Sorry. Are we which?
I think there was a question posed around private versus public cloud, which is an extension of hybrid, if I remember correctly, right? I think that also. I think Yash and Ted answered that to summarize, right? I think across both of it. I think determining which applications reside on-prem versus cloud is due to a variety of reasons, and not only due to internal business reasons, but also due to regulatory reasons, right? So having made the determination, understanding which are the ideal location for the applications or the workloads is something to be taken in a very considered manner. And that's where the whole migration versus modernization aspect comes into play. And the reality is, as we pointed out, right, most customers don't migrate in entirety to cloud. So hybrid work, the hybrid environment is here to stay. So one of the things to keep in mind is that whenever you have a hybrid cloud footprint, the complexity increases, right? So and being able to tackle that is something that you need to set yourself up for as you plan and chart out your cloud chain. Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We also have actually Vinayak also has some questions too. If we can look at the chat. So he was asking if Lightstorm directly lies with AWS India to set up new NW setups for new points of presence, if not new AZs.
So new AZs is more like what AWS would decide. I believe they have announced a new AZ in Hyderabad. What Lightstorm provides is connectivity. At this point in time, we are providing wavelength services. Or Lambda services, as these are called. These are very high capacity services connecting, one data center to another. We believe some of the people who have a huge amount of data that they need to transfer. They buy these services. When we go down to the enterprise level, we believe the hybrid cloud is going to be here to stay. People would have a multi-cloud strategy. People will have things like their emails sitting on one cloud and their applications on a different cloud and a ERP in a different cloud. And they would definitely have a need to connect these on a very reliable network so that they don't see any latency. They don't have to build their own data centers, but they can just connect the data centers in such a way that this whole experience is a uniform. So we are actually investing and building a platform which allows people to do multiple data center connectivities and multiple cloud connectivity. That is something that we are building. It's work in progress. This is as it comes out, as we roll out this service, it'll be known to everyone. We'll make a big noise about it. But that's what we are trying to do. We want to connect everyone in a manner where we don't take sides.
Okay, all right, thanks. I have another question here asked privately. How do you monitor and optimize your cloud operations costs on an ongoing basis?
So I think Yash answered it, and even Arvi and Ted pitched on it. The way we do it is we have monthly triggers identified, and we get a trigger that this month is trending, and we get that trigger very early in the month. And if you continue with this workload, this is what your monthly bill is going to look like. And that is available on CloudWatch. We find that feature very useful. In spite of that, there are chances that we may exceed. We may have a runaway application or a runaway data pullout. So those are some of the things that we have kind of worked with Cloud Kinetics to help us control and give us a list of all the applications which will do a huge amount of data out. And if they do it, based on APIs or, if there is a periodic way of doing it, we prefer to keep as much information, resident in AWS so we can build the applications within the AWS. So only the reports need to be pulled out and not have a need of pulling out the whole data. There is no real need to do that. So that's how we do it. I'm sure there are best practices your cloud partner will be able to help you with. AWS themselves will have a solution architect assigned. We have one assigned who helps us look at on a periodic basis, how it is going, what are the areas and opportunities for improvement. So that kind of works well for us.
Yeah, I mean, to add to what Ted and Yash have already spoken about, right, and which Lalit actually pointed out, right? So presently, there is no the best way to do this is to be able to monitor this in a very structured manner, right? Cost management and performance monitoring to some extent go hand in hand, as does the ability to go ahead and do remediation, right? In terms of being able to spin down instances, etc., automatically based on certain rules, etc., right? That's where the operation part, and particularly the cloud partner and an experienced managed services partner could be of vital assistance in ensuring that there's a very systematic and proactive approach when it comes to managing both performance, reliability, and costs. In addition to the optimization part that again Yash spoke about when it comes to doing routine, what I call 6-pillar or well-architected framework reviews in order to tune the cloud footprint for operational excellence and cost management, security, reliability, etc. So it's an ongoing exercise, and it's something that it's in the absence of dedicated and trained people in the team. It is something that is worth investing because ROI on that is orders of magnitude greater than the opportunity cost either in terms of cost blow up or or on downtime or security issues, right? So that's something we definitely definitely recommend and advise to anybody, regardless of company size, when it comes to migration to cloud and operating optimally in cloud.
Yeah, all right, thanks. Yash, would you have anything else to add?
No, all bases covered.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so I actually have another question here. How can we evolve? Oh, wait, sorry. Yeah, how can we evolve our cloud infrastructure as a company scales its cloud operations while ensuring cost efficiency and security within the next few years?
That's a really good question. So maybe I'll take a jab at it first. So as the company evolves, first, obviously there are stepwise approaches that you would need to take in terms of making sure that whatever you launch on the cloud is what the team needs, right? You don't over provision stuff, and make sure there are certain guardrails in place. Now, whenever I'm working with customers, what I usually tell them is make automation and a proper habit within the entire organization, right? Leverage on infrastructure as code as much as possible. Have your guardrails built into the IAC, and have monitoring in place. Have your test cases built out around your IAC so that the infrastructure as code is not hampered with, and you're able to provide a pipeline to your developers to launch the services without impacting the actual cost and the operation flow within the organization, right? So having proper guardrails, having proper mechanisms in place to test out your infra as code, and having proper pipelines in place to deploy those infrastructure pieces are very critical for having a full-blown, efficient, working cloud environment.
Okay, all right, thank you. RV, anything to add, or Lalit, maybe?
I think
not specifically to this. No, not specific to this question.
Okay, all right. RV, you were saying something?
Sorry, I think Yash answered it fairly comprehensively,
okay,
right, in terms of the infrastructure as a core part. But I still again go back to just the fundamentals of basically relooking at architecture and optimizing. The needs evolve. I think it is at the risk of overemphasizing it. It's amazing the number of customers who go through on a cloud journey with the footprint not changing, but with the potential to actually to operationalize more security, tune downtime, tune up time, right, and performance on a continuing basis, because data continues to grow. The operating environment is constantly in a flux, right? So the needs apart, I think it's important to ensure that you have proactive monitoring and cost analysis and forecasting on an ongoing basis, as well as periodic and a great cadence and a very systematic cadence, as Yash pointed out, for assessments and data-driven assessments and remediation. Right? So I think that will help a lot.
Okay. All right, I think we have time for about one last question. So we also have, locking up with one public cloud server is better towards cost and security in the longer run compared to hybrid cloud setup?
All right. So again, I wouldn't say you're locking yourself up, but to be honest, from a hybrid perspective, what we've seen working is, in case if you just making sure that if you're going with one public provider, one cloud provider, it helps you standardize your controls across the entire pane, right? So you don't need to maintain different tool sets for different cloud providers. Plus, even in terms of your own internal skill sets, it becomes easier to handle a team who understands the entire environment. Otherwise, upskilling the team on 3, 4 different cloud providers does not would not be viable for the team as well. So yeah, as the having standardized approach, standardized tool sets on a single cloud provider would help you achieve your business outcomes.
Yeah,
So let me, yeah, Ted, let me add, to what Yash had said, and Ted, I'll hand it over to you. We are a telecom service provider, and if there are two industries which are highly regulated in India, one is TSPs and the other are banking and finance. So security by itself is a huge topic, which of course wasn't the topic of today's masterclass. I'm sure you would need a separate masterclass just for security. But having said that, the way, if you look at the trends in security, and security, there's a perimeter security, there's web security, the application security, and there are a bunch of things, firewalls and ransomware support, anti-ransomware support, and things like those. So it's a huge subject in itself. But what you would see as a trend is that most of the security softwares have moved into cloud, and they are providing security services through a cloud, and they are doing it in pretty much all the public clouds, and they will of course do it on-prem as well. So it's an architecture, security architecture by itself is multi-cloud and is available for on-prem. Now it's for the CIO to decide, what is their regulatory requirement, what are the applications that they have on cloud, and then how do they secure those. So in terms of options, I think the options are available. Most of the top security guys are hosted on AWS. You can use native AWS WAF, or you can use any third party, and all of them are available to you on AWS. If you will, I'm just taking an example of AWS. That will be true for any other cloud provider as well. But security, I think, by itself is a huge subject. So I'll hand it over to Ted. I think he wanted to say something.
No, I think Lalita, you are absolutely spot on, right? I think security is definitely a huge contributory factor in deciding how you want to have a strategy on whether it's hybrid cloud, on-prem and public, or going with multiple public cloud provider. Look, I think at the end of the day, it's customer choice on how they want to architect, and like you said, could be regulatory, could be data residency issues, it could be availability, who is available in that country, etc. So all of those are considerations. And what Yash said, kind of, it's a fundamental thing to think through, which is, yes, if you're on-prem and if you're going to move to cloud, yeah, I mean, you do need to learn about the cloud and kind of, have two environments that you're managing. And of course, if you want to have multiple public cloud, you then need to understand the different aspects of, they're not all the same, right? So, there is a little bit of that learning to be done. But I think a lot of this is actually driven by the customer needs and what problem they're trying to resolve, right? And fundamentally, our view from Cloud Kinetics is, look, if a customer wants to look at one public cloud, multiple clouds, or even hybrid cloud, the way we kind of look into is how do we address the customer challenges? Yes, what Yash said absolutely resonates, which is customers may need to now understand multiple cloud architectures and how to manage that. And this is where Cloud Kinetics comes to play, right? I mean, we have skill sets in multiple clouds, and we work with AWS very closely. We understand them very deeply. So, for us, it's about helping the customers manage the complexity so that you as a customer could then go and focus on your business, right? And that's kind of where we come in and play to say, you make the decision on how you want to do this, and we'll kind of help you, manage that and kind of take you to market. So that's kind of the commentary that I have.
Okay, all right. We hope that answered everyone's questions. Vinayak, I'm so sorry. We won't have time to discuss your other questions or for you to unmute, but I'm sure you and Ted and the rest of the Cloud Kinetics team would be able to speak after this, as well as everyone. I'm pretty sure everyone's looking forward to keeping in touch after for their other questions as well. But as we are running out of time, I'd just like to call on RV for maybe a few final words.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say that there are some questions which I assume were raised one-on-one and which we didn't have time to potentially reach out and answer now. But I think we reached out. I think there was a question around security, for example, around cloud, which as Lalit mentioned, was a topic by itself. But we'll definitely reach out to you one-on-one to schedule some time to address those. Right. So that's something we'll take up as an action. Thanks again for making this a very interactive session and being very engaged. Thanks again.
All right. Thank you again, everyone. And lastly, before we end, we will have our lucky draw. So, Annie, could you please share the wheel of names? Okay, so let's start. The winner is Chivi C. All right, congratulations, Chivi. We will be in touch with you at the end of the masterclass for us to be able to give you your AirPods. So, yes, congratulations. So on that note, everyone, it's really been a pleasure to have you all with us. It's been great to hear from Yash, from Lalit, and from RV. Thank you very much for sharing. We do hope that you all gained some insight on this, and we're very thankful for you taking your time to join us. And with that, thank you very much, and we hope you have a good day. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.